Okay, hi everybody. I'm Melanie Shapiro. I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm based in Massachusetts. I'm here today because I want to talk to you guys about what's going to happen with Trump coming in. I want to answer any questions that you have. I am live on YouTube, TikTok, Insta, and Facebook. So I am going to wait for some peeps to join. Please go ahead and like my profile, share this video. Let me know if you have any questions for me about immigration. So I am going to start with some of the questions that I have received. Now, typically, if you want to discuss your case with me, you have to book a consultation, and certainly go ahead and do that. Reach out, send me a message. There's a link in my bio if you want to schedule a consult with me. Now, in terms of the questions that I receive, my consultations cost money. And so when I come on the live, I try and answer some of the questions that I have received for people. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started on here. And please let me know you're here. Say hi. Love to talk to you guys. So the first question that I have is from Regina. Regina asked me, hi, I submitted my I-130 applications 29 months ago, and it has yet to be approved by USCIS and still shows actively reviewing. I just want to know if there are any options to expedite the process. So, yes, there are ways you can expedite your case, and these can be if the case is outside of normal processing times, you can submit an inquiry online on the USCIS website. Or if you have some reason why you need to expedite your case for some sort of humanitarian reason, then, or if it's in the public interest, then you can try to do that. Now, I have a lot of clients who want to expedite their case because they say have, a situation where they have a family member who's sick in the home country and they need to go and travel and see them. Or so we provide some evidence of that. And sometimes we work with the congressperson's offices because all of them have congressional liaisons to help and assist with those cases and trying to expedite them. So we can try to do it that way. You can call the USCIS phone number and submit a expedite request that way. And then apart from, say, a sick family member or something like that, I also have a client. So if you're just joining, I'm talking about trying to expedite cases. So I have a client who wants to adopt kids here in the US. And in order to do that, he has to have at least a green card to adopt. And he has a T visa right now, which is for victims of human trafficking. And while we were able to expedite his T visa process for something like being able to adopt a child or something like that, perhaps that could be one basis to say it's in the public interest to do that. And so anyway, that's one way you can do it. You can also reach out to there's an ombudsman with USCIS to try and expedite the case, but it's hard to get an expedite request approved. It really has to be an urgent situation. So thank you, Regina, for your question. The next question that I have is I have a guy named Mohammed who is from Afghanistan, and he applied for humanitarian parole in October, but he hasn't received any sort of update on the case. I see this a lot. Humanitarian parole, to try and expedite that, again, there has to be an urgent situation. The thing with humanitarian parole is it's already being done. It's already because of an urgent situation. So for that, in that case, you have to show that somebody's in imminent harm. And then same mechanisms I talked about, like with trying to expedite any other type of case. Every congressperson's office has a liaison with the immigration agencies this is a really good way to go to try and expedite a case because they have more direct contact with the agencies than, say, an attorney or somebody who's applying for something can get. So Afghan parolees, people applying for Afghan parole, the person that has to do the request has to be your sponsor. So if your sponsor can get me evidence that you are experiencing really imminent threats to your life, to your liberty, then yes, we can try and expedite it. Another way that I try to speed cases up if they're delayed is through what's called mandamus. It's a lawsuit in federal court, love suing the government when they're not doing their job. So basically, a mandamus lawsuit is when somebody has a case that's pending and there's an unreasonable delay, you can sue the government to mandate them to take action on the case. Now, it doesn't mean that your case is going to be approved, but it does mean that something will happen. I've very successfully pursued these types of lawsuits with the federal government, and I have one of those pending right now. So I've filed lawsuits against the government, say, if somebody has had an asylum interview and they've been waiting for a really long time for an answer on the case, we can do that. If your case is, say, outside of normal processing times, or there's some reason, you can even sue them if it's still in, the normal processing times, but the processing times are so unreasonable. So there's types of cases that take absolutely forever, and that is completely unreasonable. So we can also sue them about that. So Mohammed, thank you for your question. For those of you joining, I am Melanie Shapiro. I'm an immigration attorney. You can go ahead and send me any questions that you have through the chat, through messaging. Go ahead and drop me a comment, say hello, where are you from? And, I love to hear from you guys. How are you guys doing? So we're gearing up for the new Trump administration. And it's gonna be pretty stressful for people. What I'm trying to push for now is for anybody that has is eligible to apply for your citizenship. Let's get her done, because President Trump is going to be change the enforcement priorities, make tougher policies. So if you can apply for citizenship, let's get it done. I am working on doing a clinic for people who are eligible for citizenship with a reduced rate for my fee, so we can just bang them out. So if you are eligible based on, you've had your green card for 5 years, just as a general matter, or you got your green card through marriage and you're still married, then we can apply for your citizenship. If you've been granted asylum, we can apply for your citizenship after you've had your green card for 4 years. So it's a little bit quicker, but let's get her done. While Trump administration is just starting off, because we don't know what's going to happen really. And now, one of the things that Trump wants to get rid of is birthright citizenship, meaning that as it is now, if you're born in the US, you are a US citizen. And he wants to get rid of that. We've had birthright citizenship forever, so that should be pretty interesting. And that would require a constitutional amendment. So tricky, or it's going to be hard. So parents, if your child was born in the US and they do not have their US passport, make sure you get that now, because even if Trump tries to get rid of birthright citizenship, that is proof that your child is a citizen. And also, I'll get into this another time, but there is automatic citizenship for children who are born abroad and their parents, one or both, are US citizens, that they can automatically derive US citizenship in certain cases. All right, so the next thing that Trump is trying to do is go back to the MPP program, which was basically people had to remain in Mexico. Even asylum seekers, anybody who wants to come into the US is going to have to wait in Mexico. And this was a real problem back in the day when, well, actually, I can't even say back in the day, because President Biden took his sweet time to get rid of that policy. And it was really harmful for people because In Mexico, waiting in Mexico is hard because generally the cities that people are waiting in are not very safe cities because they have to stay close to the border for when they get notification that it's their time to come in for their court date. Go in for a court date, get shipped back to Mexico while you're waiting for the process. And a lot of people, they say, that makes people vulnerable. And then the cartels and other people take advantage of the situation. So I've had really bad outcomes for clients who have been raped, who have been kidnapped in Mexico while they're waiting for their case. Now, so that's a problem. And then also, Trump is trying to deport everyone, which it makes no sense. It's just not even physically possible. And people who are here have rights to due process. So even if somebody isn't a lawful permanent resident or a U.S. citizen, they still have some constitutional rights. And one of them is called due process. Basically, due process means that there's some process that's owed to people in certain, in situations. And for immigrants, this means that they can't just be deported willy-nilly, basically. You can't just do that. So unless they have a final order of removal or they're in what's called expedited removal proceedings, they do have a right to have their case before a judge, have a full immigration hearing, present whatever they want to present, and then the judge makes a determination, and then they can appeal it. So it's not possible for Trump to just round people up and deport them because that's a violation of the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, the right to due process. And also, along those lines, the only people, like I mentioned, that he can actually come and deport are people with final orders of removal. So if you have a final order of removal, you want to talk to me about it because we might be able to reopen your case. You might be eligible for something else. And also, at a bare minimum, we can do what's called a request for a stay of removal. And so that is basically, you can ask ICE, the ERO, which is Enforcement and Removal Operations. These are the deporting people, like the officers that go out and stuff. You can ask them to stay your removal, which means stopping your removal for a period of time. And the way it's not a guarantee when you put in an application for that, but that is one way that you can try and kind of, make yourself safe in the US. And also, if you are like an enforcement priority now of people who've got criminal issues, people who have final orders of removal, that means people also who had voluntary departure and didn't leave when they're supposed to, you want to get a plan in place for your family. So if you don't have your citizenship, if you don't have your green card, you need to put a plan in place for your family. You need to figure out, if I get picked up by ICE, what's going to happen to my family? If you have kids, you want to get certain documents in place, giving other people permission to, like a temporary guardianship, or you want to give permission to someone to be able to pick your kid up from school if something happens to you. You need to have a game plan and talk to your family about it too, because I think that it's really scary that there is some stuff, all this stuff going on. But anyway, so I have a lovely comment here. Thank you. So you want to just keep in mind that you need to talk to your family about it. Don't make it some taboo thing. This is a reality for many people that they might not qualify for something, or Trump is talking about getting rid of TPS. And that's very scary. Thank God, President Biden just renewed TPS for Ukraine, Sudan, El Salvador, and I think Venezuela. So if you are from any of those countries, please work on either applying for TPS or renewing your TPS, because now's your chance, and that's going to get locked in for a while. Like it's going to be good for 18 months. So if you can do that, go ahead and do that. That'll give you a little breathing room. But I really recommend that you sign up for a consultation with me just so you can get all the information and I can do a very thorough screening because there's certain types of cases that you wouldn't think of that might not be kind of obvious ones like, oh, a spouse can apply for me, oh, I can I apply for asylum, or my job could sponsor me or something. It's a lot more nuanced than that. So there's other types of cases that you might qualify for. Like, for example, I was just mentioning a T visa. This is for survivors of human trafficking. And it's not as black and white as you think, right? So trafficking can be for labor, it can be for commercial sexual activity. And I have actually been doing a number of T visas for people who were, brought here by coyotes, human smugglers, and they brought them here. They extorted them, and they continue to do so once they got into the United States. And so I've been successful for some people from Brazil. I have some other ones going now. I have one that I'm working on for a guy from Colombia who was brought up here with the promise of, he's going to work in a church. They were going to sponsor him for a religious worker visa. And that is not what happened. He was put into something we call debt bondage. Well, the other guy was too. Basically, you're bonded to somebody because of a debt, and they might increase that debt. So, with the Brazilian guy I was talking about, after he got to the United States, then the coyotes kept harassing him for more money than what was agreed upon. So, that's something. And then the other one that I'm talking about, the Colombian guy, that it's this promise to induce somebody to come here for the purpose of a job. However, it really turned into something like involuntary servitude. And that's one of the forms of labor trafficking. So, you can also think about a U visa. If you've been a victim of violent crime in the United States, then you can apply for this U visa. They are taking absolutely forever. And Trump is talking about putting some restrictions on the U visa or the T visa, but we don't really know and what's going to happen exactly with that. And keep in mind that when a president does an executive order, or if they change policies, then you better believe that there's going to be some lawsuits, and it's going to take a while to determine what's going on. So that means that we do have some time to get some of these cases in. So for what was I going to say? Yep. So for the U visas, yes, they're taking a long time. You have to be a victim of violent crime, and you have to have been helpful or cooperate with law enforcement because we do need them to sign off. However, there is a caveat here that if you were not able to cooperate because of the harm that you suffered, that is just mentally not possible for you to participate, then there's an exception for that. And I've done a lot of the U visas. I have good relationships with the DAs, the district attorneys out here, and I'm familiar with the process. I have gotten people U visas for having someone violate a restraining order, somebody, domestic violence based, assault and battery, somebody was in an armed robbery, um, you know, sexual assault, things like that. So there's a whole list of crimes where you can be eligible for the U visa. So, with that, we also have SIJ, which is Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, and that's for kids who've been abused, abandoned, or neglected by one or both of their parents. Basically, this is a way for a kid to get a green card. It's going to take a long time, but something you can look into. And for parents, if your child has been a victim of violent crime and they're still under 21, you can actually apply for a U visa yourself. So just something good to know there. So lots of different options. So I'm going to see if there are any other questions that you guys have. Let me see. So I have Itze asked me a question about, she wants information about a case, a sibling case. So if you are a US citizen, you can apply for your parents and you can apply for your siblings. Green card holders cannot do that. So, yeah, I mean, if you want to apply for your sibling, you can do that. Just bear in mind, this is one of the slowest types of cases, and it's taking about 16 years to process those cases. That's because there's this thing called the visa bulletin, which limits the amount of visas that are available and so forth. So that does take a really long time. And let's see. I am just looking to see if we have any other questions here. Okay, también hablo español y esta pregunta es de Julián. Julián dice, hola Melanie, siempre tuvo curiosidad por saber si el dulce de leche... Oh my God, disculpe, este es un idiota. Okay, so I am also looking here. If there's any other questions. Okay, so I have a question from Shabana, and Shabana asks, how long does refugee-based green card processing take? So I'm going to go ahead and check this out right now because it really does vary. So if you go onto the USCIS website, which is just uscis.gov, they have different tools here, and you can check, even if you just Google case processing times with USCIS, and you go on the website, you choose whatever type of form it is. So the form that we use for adjustment of status is I-485, and then you select the category of what it is. So based on grant of asylum, and that is actually not too bad, 15 and a half months. They had been taking a bit longer. Now, the cool thing about this is that there was a policy change a while back, and that policy change allowed people who are applying for asylum to go ahead and file for their applications right away. Now, the USCIS is not going to be able to make a decision on these cases until you've been in the US for, had your asylee status for a year and you've been in the US that whole time. But the cool thing about the policy is that this means that they have the applications, they have what they need, and they are able to make a decision as soon as you meet that 1-year mark. So it does really cut down on the processing time. So I hope that answered your question. See if we have any other questions here. Let's see. Okay. I have a question from Kasim from Afghanistan. Hope you're doing well. First of all, thanks for giving me your response, madam. I am from Afghanistan. I need your help. I worked with the U.S. Army as a translator and interpreter in Afghanistan, and he wants to apply for humanitarian parole. So again, for people who are from Afghanistan who want to apply for humanitarian parole, you need to have a sponsor in the US. They do not have to be related to you. They do not have to be US citizens, but it can be, anyone who cares about you and wants to help you, and they need to file on your behalf. The good thing is that we can now file for the humanitarian parole online, and it's just there's a website called myuscis.com or gov, and this is one of the cases you can apply for online. So there are several cases that you can apply for online. This is a new thing. It's very exciting because you get your receipt notice right away, you get your number right away, and then you could, upload all your evidence as you go on this website, and it makes things a lot faster. It makes it a lot less likely that the government is going to lose your paperwork because it's electronic, and that's what the government is moving towards. So That's definitely a good thing. So with his situation here, being an interpreter or a translator with U.S. Army, um, there is another type of case that you can do for that. The special immigrant visa case, so an I-360 is the form. But there's a lot of requirements, and even if you and so this can be Afghani, Iraqi translators are one of the categories on this type of form. But there are certain requirements about how long you've worked for the government and so forth. So that could be an option. And let me see if we have more questions. Please go ahead and send over your questions. Happy to answer them if you have them. So let me go back over to, I'm just going to check over here because I have some messages that came in from TikTok, so we're going to see if TikTok is going to stick around or not. I really hope that it does. It's been good to connect with people on here. So I did get a question from, let me see here. Let me look at the messages. We have 3 message requests here. So it's like all spam. Let me see. Here we go. I have a question from a guy named Kennedy from TikTok, and he's asking, so he is on a crewman visa. He's from Cameroon, and he wants to seek asylum in the US. Now, with people who are on these crewman visas, the CD ones, generally, you can't apply for stuff with those visas from the United States. This guy is a gay man from Cameroon, and Cameroon is a very, very dangerous country for gay people. I really specialize in doing the LGBT asylum cases. Now, one of the exceptions for being able to apply for something with the crewman visa is if you are in fear of going back to your country. So he was just asking me about that. And I have several Cameroonian cases right now. One of them is for a gay man. I'm representing some other cases where it's more politically based, but the situation there is not good. Yeah, one of the things I really like about what I do is I get to learn about all these different cultures and the politics and the history in the country, what's going on, what people care about. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. But anyway, so for that, he was just asking about the process and the cost and so forth. So I don't really give out quotes on cases, and the reason for that is I need to meet with the person. I need to see if they're eligible for what they want to do, or they might be eligible for something they didn't even know about that would be better for their situation. So that's why I need to sit down and do the consultation, and there's different factors that will affect the price, such as the time we have to do something, if there's an urgent deadline, if somebody has criminal history that we have to contend with, if somebody is detained. So I do detained work as well. I have some clients I'm representing now in various locations. So I do that. But anyway, thank you for the question there. And I'm going to see if there is anybody else I missed who sent me messages with questions. Let's see. So I have this guy, Eric, from TikTok, who asked me a question back in December. He says, I am a Mexican citizen who entered the US illegally in 2004 and after a voluntary departure in 2008 returned in a similar manner. Since 2015, I've been married to a US citizen and have 2 children. I work for this blah, 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 this company. And during his green card interview, he was told that he has to apply for a waiver and stay outside of the United States. This is not true, actually. So this is something that comes up and is confusing, but when somebody has, this 10-year bar, right? It's 10 years after they've accrued the bar, as after leaving. So the fact that you left and you came back, the time still keeps on ticking. So that means that whoever told him about him having to stay outside of the US for while his case is pending, that is just not true. Because he re-entered in the illegal manner. So yes, in that case, it's a little trickier. But say, for example, you have the 10-year bar, you leave, and then you get paroled in or something like that. You can absolutely go ahead and do your waiver within the United States. So the problem there with him is that he has the 2 illegal reentries, so that, is not a good thing. So I'm gonna just check and see if I have any more questions, and thanks to everybody who's tuning in. I appreciate you. Let me see what we got here. Okay, so I have a question from someone on TikTok. And it's in Spanish. So dice, una pregunta, así como yo y mi hija, que tenemos ya casi 10 años con el permiso, ¿no habrá alguna posibilidad de aplicar para la residencia? No tuve la última corte, pero no sé si se podrá aplicar para la residencia para mí o para mi hija. Bueno, gracias para tu pregunta. Necesito alguna más clarificación porque no sé exactamente sobre de su caso en la Corte de Inmigración. Escucha cómo usted tiene un caso en la Corte. Y la cosa es que este es muy complicado. Hay una solución, probablemente oye de un caso de los 10 años. Este caso solamente para la gente que están en los procedimientos de la Corte de Inmigración y hay requisitos. Primero es que necesita tener 10 años aquí en los Estados Unidos con su residencia continuar y necesita tener un hardship, por ejemplo, para un miembro de su familia que no es un ciudadano o residente permanente, solamente puede ser sus hijos abajo de 21 años de edad, su esposa o esposo y o un padre o madre que tiene alguna condición muy grave, como por ejemplo si tiene una hija que necesita ayuda en la escuela, o tiene una condición como autismo, como asma, tiene algunos problemas de médico, algo como así. Entonces es muy difícil. Y la otra cosa es que usted necesita tener ¿cómo se dice? Necesitan tener un estatus para los 10 años antes de inmigración, encontró inmigración. O hay casos en la Corte Suprema que dice que si tiene una notificación para la Corte sin alguna información y no para su tiempo para cuenta para este caso de cancelación de deportación o la cosa de los 10 años. Espero que es buena contestar para su pregunta. Si tiene más preguntas, puede enviarme un mensaje. Gracias. Okay, so I have a question from a guy named Wilberforce from Kenya. He says he intends to come over to work as a nurse. And what's your advice for me to follow? Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. We really need nurses here. And the immigration policies are super, super friendly for people who want to come here as nurses. Now, you should have a company sponsor you here. Let me just look here. Although a good thing here is that there is a national interest waiver. So you could sponsor yourself as a nurse, and this allows you to become a permanent resident in the United States. You have to have an advanced degree, a bachelor's degree or higher in nursing. And you also have to show that you have really good qualifications and experience. And they also have to show, that your work would be in the public interest. Um, Now, with these two, you'd have a better shot of applying for the national interest waiver if you commit to going to an underserved area. And so that's one way you could do it. Another way you can do it is if you have an employer who can sponsor you for for a permanent residence case. These do take quite some time, though. Just to bear in mind, it could take about 2 years for everything to be complete. If you wanted to come here sooner, then you could come here on a temporary visa for working as a nurse. But you do need to have an employer sponsor you. So I'm just looking at some of the categories for the employment-based visas to just give you a little bit better information on that. And so there are H-1Bs. That is a lottery type of case, and those open up in March, and you do need to have an employer who will petition for you. And this is on a lottery system. So, for example, I had this dentist that I was trying to apply for on the H-1B, but he wasn't selected for the lottery. So there's no guarantee, but it certainly doesn't hurt to put your hat in that. And then, let me see. Yeah, I mean, that is pretty much the best way to go about it. The H-1B, you can do the national interest waiver. Another thing is that you can come in on like a student visa or something and do some school here. Then you get 2 years of what we call OPT, optional practical training, where you can get your foot in the door somewhere to then hopefully have them sponsor you and hire you afterwards. So that's, those are some options here. But I think probably in your situation, look into that national interest waiver because that is a lot faster than having an employer sponsor you for a green card. And there's a lot less requirements so long as you can show that it's for the public interest and stuff. So just see. Okay. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to see if there's any more questions, but I do need to wrap it up because I have to actually do some work on my cases. I had court earlier today for a guy who is applying for a VAWA case, and that's for spouses who've suffered with abuse from their U.S. citizen or green card holder spouses. I am working on an appeal for somebody who is trying to get a green card. They already have a U visa, but it's so kind of complicated. And then I'm working on a case in the First Circuit Court of Appeals for somebody from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So lots of stuff to do. I'm just going to go ahead and check. And please, if you do have any questions, go ahead, send me a message and let me know. Drop a comment for me, and I'll answer those if I can. I'm going to see if there's any other ones here. Okay. I think I might have covered everybody's, which is awesome. All right. Well, thanks, folks, for tuning in. Go ahead and like and follow me. Look forward to hearing from you, and definitely want to push again. Let's get some naturalization applications in ASAP since Trump is taking over. If you have your citizenship, you will be much better off than if you have a green card. And if you have kids who are born here but don't have their passports, get them their passports before, as soon as possible, please, because Trump is trying to get rid of the birthright citizenship. And again, I'm Melanie Shapiro, immigration lawyer based out of Boston. And thank you for tuning in, and I hope to hear from you and have a great rest of your